Now,
on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
7:06 on this Friday, not just any Friday. We're always in love on Fridays, but we're also in love with the fact that the holiday is right around the corner. It's your last weekend for shopping or for getting beautiful pictures, getting trees, getting decorations, getting hot cocoa, and all the things. Are your award-winning Prince George's County neighborhood decorations up and completed, Patrice?
They are up. However, we brought in a new high-tech thing that burned out. It was super cool, and it burned out. And it was expensive, so we've had to take that part of the installation down.
You're not going to win your award? You won an award
Well,
last year.
We still have our Trump sign up, Larry, in our yard, so you know we're not winning anything.
So that disqualifies you right there. All right,
we've already been disqualified.
Coming up at 7:35, Andy Pollin from ESPN 630 to give us a preview of this weekend's Commanders game against the Eagles. Big game in Landover. 8:05, Bill O'Reilly will join us. And then at 8:35, Matt Foldy, who reports on Capitol Hill to find out what's going on behind the scenes with Republicans and the next step forward to keep the government funded, maybe. That's Patrice Onwuka, as already introduced. I am Larry O'Connor, and joining us now is Grover Norquist. He's the president for Americans for Tax Reform, and I think you've seen this rodeo once or twice, Grover. Good morning, and happy holidays to you.
Absolutely. Good morning, Patrice, Larry. We have seen this rodeo before, and it is not time to get disappointed yet. Keep your eye on the ball. The Trump administration, the Republicans in the House and Senate, are really committed to this sort of DOGE idea of having outsiders look at spending and then having the relevant committees subpoena everything from the government to get more information on how and when we can reduce spending. And they're looking for serious pro-growth tax cuts. Now, can we do that today when the Democrats run the Senate? There are no votes to do any of that in the Senate. No majority votes in the Senate. There are many Republican votes, but there's no majority in the Senate to do that. And you have a president who will veto. Tough to remember this, but Biden is technically still the president.
I was going to jump in there, Grover. When you say the president, of course, you mean Biden, because by watching the propaganda media right now, you would think that Trump was already president, because you haven't heard from Biden about any of this.
No, and the press would like to forget that they were part of that for the last 4 years. So they're not doing this quite as a favor to Trump, but to themselves, to not have to defend 4 years of less than successful governance. So what do you do, right? How do you put the pieces together in what order? The original strategy seemed to be, okay, the D's can veto anything between now and when the president walks out the door and the Senate and the Senate changes. So we clear the decks, pass the compromise bill, which is going to include a lot of awful spending, but get that all behind us, and then we move from there. Then the president called an audible and said, you know what? Nah, don't do that. Do something instead, a just Republican-only bill, but that also has a debt ceiling thing in it, because when we get to the other side, we're going to do all this really cool stuff. Well, in what order do you do these things? There were 38 people who said, this is kind of a last-minute change. We don't like debt ceiling increases. We're going to have to do one at some point. Thank you to the buildup of all of the unfinanced programs that we have that just keep growing and growing and are quote-unquote mandatory because they made them mandatory 50 years ago. So the good news is we have a serious tax cut that needs to be extended that gave us a lot of growth and got us through an awful lot of otherwise really bad times. And we are growing faster than the Europeans because we cut our corporate rate down. Instead of having it at 35, worst in the world, stupider than France, down to 21, which is just mildly stupid. 15 is what the president originally wanted and what he says he wants to go to. If we get to 15, we will outcompete Europe. That is the kind of leverage you want to have when you're talking to the Europeans. Hi, we're growing, we're pulling away from you. Do you want to be with us or not?
So, Grover, I mean, the tax cuts, I think we're all on board that we need to have that happen. But I've been saying that what we're seeing right now with this budget fight, the spending bill fight, is a precursor to what's going to happen next year, because I don't even think the conservative conference is on board with whether there's two reconciliation bills or one, whether tax cuts are paired with immigration, dealing with the border and dealing with permitting reform to boost energy projection, or whether it's two separate bills. I mean, I feel like what we're seeing today playing out is going to probably play out all of next year. So how do we bring the conference together? Who can bring the conference together and say, hey, conservatives, we know that you want fiscal sanity, but we need to govern as well. How do you do that, and who's going to be the one to lead?
Well, I think there are going to be a lot of people who are leading in the House and in the Senate. Crapo, the Senate finance leader from Idaho, has said we're going to do one bill, not several. If you start by saying we're doing something other than tax and spending, although the idea of a border bill, that's just spending. That's just they're going to rebuild the wall and things like that. That can easily fit inside the same, and should, in my view, stay inside the same bill as all the other tax changes and spending changes, because a reconciliation package, you're legally allowed to raise spending, cut spending, raise taxes, cut taxes. You're not allowed to change laws. You can't change immigration law in a reconciliation package. And you can't change laws about anything, just spending levels and tax levels. I think you can put them in one package, get it passed. It makes it more popular to say we're going to make sure the wall gets built, and it was largely built. It needs to be rebuilt since our friends took part of it apart. That's the guy who was president today, Biden. I don't know if you met him, but so this really can be done in one bill. I fear the idea of divided up in two. Everybody's going to want to get on the first bus, not the second bus. Mm-hmm. It will actually slow things down. This happened before. In 2017, the Republicans in the House, same 38 guys probably, said, well, we have to change the law on Obamacare. And people gently explained to them, you can't change the law inside reconciliation. It took several months for them to finally understand that, by which time we didn't get that tax cut through until December of 2017. What happened? Massive growth, 6.8% growth in the median income in this country, 6%, larger than all 8 years of Obama. When did it happen? 2019. When was that? Oh, after we lost 40 seats in the House. That's when it happened. If we cut taxes a year earlier, when we first walked in, instead of spending a year having those debates, we'd have held the House and done well in the Senate. Same mistake was made with the Reagan tax cuts. We had an excuse then. The Democrats completely controlled the House, and we had to negotiate with them on that, unlike 2017, unlike now. That tax cut, the tax cut in 1981, occurred in 81, 82, 83. It was 5%, 10%, 10%. When did we get growth? Massive growth in 1983. 4 million jobs created. That's when the economy, the workforce was 2/3 of what it is today. So like 6 million jobs in 1 year in a growing economy, strong, wonderful. When was that? Oh, I don't know. After we got crushed in the 1982 election because we didn't have the growth. Put the growth, put the tax cuts at the beginning, then run in a year when you have strong growth, not the year before you have the strong growth. Any delay on the tax bill is a mistake. And the good news is we actually have interest in the Republican Party and the votes to make serious spending reform. There are lots of great ideas here people are putting forward. Selling off Fannie and Freddie. I talked to one of the guys on the relevant committee who said that's hundreds of billions of dollars that can be used to help reduce taxes and also get Fannie and Freddie out of the government because they tend to mess things up. Let's get that out in the private sector. I don't know, sell it in 12 pieces, something, but sell it, get it out of government hands.
I'm going to pause you there. Grover, there's other ideas, and I want to get to them, but I also want to get to the immediate concern and how the Republicans move forward. Can you hold on with us just for a moment? We got to take a quick...
We're going to increase the debt by $5 trillion. That's what's going to happen right here by Republicans, increasing the debt $5 trillion. And what are you doing in the same bill? $110 billion unpaid for, because you never have any ounce of self-respect to go out and campaign saying you're going to balance the budget, and then you come in here and pass $110 billion unpaid for.
That's Representative Chip Roy of Texas, and he's not pointing his finger and yelling at Democrats. It was his fellow Republicans, and he led the charge of 30-plus Republicans saying no to this trimmed-down option yesterday. And Grover, does he have a point here? And even if he does, is this the right time to make that point? Because he certainly drew attention from Donald Trump, who basically called him an untalented, ambitious guy who should be challenged coming up in the next primary 2 years from now. Where do you stand on this?
Well, without being specific on the congressman you mentioned, there is a tendency from some Republicans when the Republicans just about all vote to do something and four of them don't, and then we fail to pass the bill, they say, oh, the Republicans didn't do this. No, 4 Republicans didn't do this. And the 4 Republicans and the Democrats weren't with us on this. To blame this mess on the Republicans is, I guess it gets some attention, and the establishment press will write about you is important, but it's nonsense.
Grover, I get that, but as a Republican, it's frustrating because Nancy Pelosi had slim majorities, and boy, did she rule with an iron gavel. She got them all in line. Republicans tend to not do that, so it does look like Republicans can't quite walk together shoulder to shoulder when they need to.
The Republicans do not have labor union bosses who can go into every office and say, I can end your career tomorrow, so vote with the speaker. There is no structure in the Republican Party that does that.
That's what Donald Trump did.
Well, Donald Trump is the president, and presidents are very important and can do many things, but they can't be in 75 congressional districts taking you apart. The teachers union runs the Democratic Party. They can in a primary, they can take you out. One of the challenges is you can often take people out in a primary. That doesn't get them across the finish line in the general. So that's you can make things worse rather than better on some of those fights. So the Democrats have more discipline because it is a completely top-down party, and you saw them. I mean, every Democrat voted for the PRO Act, which ends right to work in all 50 states, and even the ones in Virginia, all Democrats all voted for it. And the Democratic structures, the labor unions, the trial lawyers, the big city political machines. All the virtuecrats, they will take you out in the primary, and they exist in every district. So there's a very different structure of discipline.
Grover Norquist, you mentioned the PRO Act, and that's like saying Beetlejuice 3 times with Patrice.
Well, obviously, Grover, at IWF we've been harping on independent contracting and all of that stuff. But just to bring it back to this shutdown, we know that we've seen shutdowns before. I think the most recent one was over 30 days. Some are just a few hours. Considering where we've been in the past with previous shutdowns, do you think that maybe there's closer to a plan C than we can imagine, or do you see this going into 2025? I mean, next week is Christmas. I haven't seen whether the members are flying out yet. It seems like they're still sticking around. I'm hoping that they're working over the weekend with anticipated votes early next week or even over the weekend. So do you see this coming to a close sooner rather than later? Do you think things are in a better position, or are you concerned that it's going to be a longer protracted shutdown?
Well, I think the White House had to decide that they were going for a shutdown. The bill that the Republicans, the second bill the Republicans put forward, took out all the thing. The first effort was get the Democrats to vote with you, give them what they need, get the bill passed, then we come in clean slate and move forward. That was the original marching orders from Trump. That was the plan, and the Republican leadership said, okay, we can live with that. I think you could argue that was going to be expensive, and if you look at what we had to give the Democrats, it wasn't nothing. It was a lot, and all the horribles that people mentioned were in the bill were the ones to get Democratic votes so the government didn't shut down. If you take that out of the bill, as they did in the bill that was put up yesterday and did not get to pass, it had nothing for the Democrats and was just getting you through with as little as you could do. And try to take some, and it took $20 billion, froze $20 billion. It was going to go to the IRS. There's some good stuff in that bill itself. If you pass that bill in the House, Schumer was never going to allow it in the Senate, and Biden's never going to sell it. So you have these people screaming on the floor as if this was a bill that was going to pass. It wasn't. It was a strategic bill, okay? The decision has evidently been made. We can, when you quote unquote close the government down, it's a partial shutdown. The government has a little bit less money than it wanted to spend. And what's different this time than others is in 30 days from when the government would partially shut down, there'll be a different president, a different House, and a different Senate. And you get the different House and Senate in the first week of January, then you get the president in January 20th. So you can come back in and pass what you wanted to. What you are doing is giving Mr. Biden, again, technically the president, he can decide which bills get paid. He can wreak some havoc. This is not a cost-free strategy. We don't run the government yet, so we can't expect that we get to move and the other team, the other team never gets to move. Yes, they do. They get at-bats too, and they do damage. So he would have some capacity to say, I'm going to not spend it on this or that, in ways to most damage the country and most embarrass the Republicans. What the 38 Republicans did was the headlines read, Republicans stop bill.
Right.
Now government will be shut down. And so instead of Republicans pass the bill that's perfectly reasonable, Democrats won't pass it, then the Democrats shut down the government. Chip Roy goes, no, I did this. I shut down the government. Well, that's not really what happened. The Democrats refused to be reasonable and to shine the light not on the Democrats' refusal to pass a reasonable bill, which allows us then in a month to come in and say, we wanted to do this last month. The Democrats wouldn't. They're not in charge anymore. Here's what we're doing. That you can sell. That is reasonable. But people who scream that the Republicans are shutting the government down on the Republican, I know the Democrats do that. I know PBS does that. But no Republicans say that. That's not our plan to shut the government down. Our plan is to keep the government going. The Democrats are unwilling to do that without bizarre and ugly spending.
Grover Norquist, Americans for Tax Reform. Thank you for that breakdown.
Thank you, Grover.
And we will be watching.
Hey, guys. Great to be with you.
Appreciate you joining us. Yeah, if now the headlines are Republicans cause government shutdown. Had the Republicans passed this bill and handed it to Chuck Schumer in the Senate, and the Democrats in the Senate said no, the headlines then would have been Republicans cause government shutdown.
It's always
how
written
it
that
always
way.
works. It's 7:25. WMAL.
Now,
On 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
7:36 now on this Friday morning before Christmas, before Hanukkah, before, well, all the mayhem happens. So we're going to try to keep you grounded and keep you up to speed on what's going on Capitol Hill, the continuing resolution, the pending government shutdown. In fact, to that end, we got Bill O'Reilly coming up in 30 minutes, and then we've got Matt Foldy, who covers Capitol Hill, and he's really well-sourced in the Republican caucus. We'll find out what he thinks the next steps will be. And when I say we, I mean me and she. That's Patrice Onwuka. Good morning, Patrice.
Good morning, Larry. Happy Friday, everybody.
Amen to that. And by the way, when I said all the mayhem starts this weekend, I, of course, mean football. Because if you like football, whether it's college football or pro football, this is go time. Yeah, we had Navy just trouncing Army last week. That's sort of the launching pad for now the best time in football. And Andy Pollin from ESPN 630 joins us right now specifically to break down this weekend's huge game in Landover. Doesn't get any bigger than this, Andy. The Eagles coming in. Do the Commanders have a chance?
Yeah, I mean, you always have a chance, and I was, we all saw
confidence.
We all saw Dumb and Dumber, right? No, but I'm curious about the line. The Eagles are only favored by 3.5. They've won 10 in a row. They may be the best team in football, and Washington's a little beat up now. They have not beaten a team with a winning record. The closest they've come is beating Arizona. They're 7-7. But I think of the Jerry Glanville line from NFL Films where he says the NFL stands for not for long, and it's difficult to keep a long winning streak alive. So this could be the game that the Eagles slip up. If they don't, it could be a tough day for Washington.
If they have a chance, it begins with stopping Saquon Barkley, right? I mean, that's if there's or at least slowing him down a bit, right?
Yeah, I mean, the last game they played in Philadelphia, now Washington was coming off a short week, so that was a problem. But and this has been their issue all year long. They're really good at keeping teams off the scoreboard in the first and second quarter. When they get to the fourth quarter, they're near the bottom of the league, and that's what happened in that game. Saquon just exploded and they have not been good at stopping the run all year long. They're a little beat up. They got a little bit of a boost this week, although I don't think he's going to play Sunday. Jonathan Allen, who is thought to be out for the year with a torn pectoral muscle, showed up and is practicing, and there's hope he'll be ready for the last 2 games of the season. But, yeah, that's been a real weakness for them, stopping the run, and that's obviously been a strength of the Eagles. Last week when they played the Steelers, you know how many possessions the Steelers had in the second half or fourth quarter? 2.
What?
2.
Wow.
Because
when you can control the ground like that, that's just devastating.
Yeah.
You control the clock.
Right.
Yeah.
So what about Jaden Daniels? What are you expecting from him this Sunday?
Well, and that's another thing to keep an eye on. When they played the Eagles, he was coming off that rib injury that he had suffered in the Carolina game. Now, he'd come back and he played well against Chicago, but there's reason to believe he was still, hurting quite a bit from that. And he now looks healthy, so that could be a big factor. And, the whole season has been about him getting better and better and better. And the one thing that he doesn't do, which, has put Kirk Cousins on the bench in Atlanta, he doesn't turn the ball over. And that's huge, especially for a rookie quarterback.
So, Andy, looking forward, not just this home game against the Eagles, but we got the Cowboys on the horizon. And, it looks like the Commanders are going to be able to get into the playoffs at this point, unless there's an absolute disaster.
Yeah,
right?
I think the way it sets up is even if they lose to Philly on Sunday, if they win only one of the last 2, they would be in, I think. They got 9 wins. 10 should put them in. If they win 2 more, that's 11. They would certainly be in. But the way things stack up with, division winners being seeded higher than they are, even with worse records, it's very likely they're going to play on the road, and it's very likely that they'll be playing either in Detroit or Philadelphia in the playoffs.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So that would be amazing, a third matchup with the Eagles. And actually, given that, and given the fact that it's the holidays, and you know how D.C. is, where people, even those who have now adopted Washington as home, often get out of town. Is it going to be very green this Sunday?
Yeah, I'm afraid of that. Now, it's been a lot better this year that, you've had more Washington fans. But the problem is these tour bus groups, they bought up tickets like last year and even the year before. So, that's probably going to be an issue there. And, let's hope that Washingtonians who do have tickets are hardy and willing to show up in what is going to be a brutally cold day. We're talking about wind chills in the teens at some point.
Let me tell you, though, it in a weird way, that'll make the victory even that much better, that all those Eagles fans will have to go home sad.
Oh,
yeah. And let's not forget, at the end of the day, win or lose, they still have to live in Philadelphia.
I mentioned you and WC Fields, huh?
I mentioned football. Let's go beyond the NFL for a moment. Of course, you cover everything brilliantly at ESPN 630. We're on the verge now of this first ever huge bracketed college football playoffs. How are you feeling about the way they've set it up and how it's going to work?
I'm curious. I didn't think they should go to 12. I think that's too many. But it has created a lot of interest for sure. Now, you got Indiana playing at Notre Dame tonight, and then you got 3 games tomorrow, and they're going up against the NFL. This is going to be very interesting because these are good NFL games, too. Kansas City, everybody wants to watch the Chiefs, and the Ravens have their game at home, huge game against Pittsburgh tomorrow. So, this is and I'm old. I only have one TV, but, the younger people either.
Does it have bunny ears?
Yeah, well, it's called rabbit ears. It's really
with aluminum foil.
Yeah,
I know exactly what TV
bunny ears. That's funny. No,
wow, Patrice. Fire shot from Onwuka.
Yeah, well, it's a fair shot, though. But the other thing is that people will sometimes, open up your laptop and watch. But I only have one set of eyes. I'm not a fly. I can't concentrate on 4 things at once. So we'll see how that goes.
And speaking of ratings, right here in D.C., we hosted the Army-Navy game. And it turns out a number 2 watch college football game of the year for CBS, number 11 overall. What a success. And I sure hope they don't tinker with it. I know they're talking about, let's make it game 0 and we'll have it at preseason. But no, keep it exactly the way it is.
It has to be where it is. And unfortunately, the way things are stacking up, it's probably not going to be a standalone game anymore. Everybody is cleared out for that and starting the playoffs a week later, but I don't think that's going to happen anymore. And it's a shame because that is a great great event, and this was a great game last week.
All right, Andy Pollin, we have a few things in common, and one is that we both love football. So this is go time. Enjoy yourself. Have a great time next week as you watch
Thanks,
all those.
Andy.
And get yourself another TV, for crying out loud. I mean, it's a business expense. This is your job. It's your profession.
I'll have to check with my accountant on that, yeah.
It's 7:44. Oh, Patrice, Santa has come early for the Vice President of the United States. You remember her, Kamala Harris. She thought she could be president.
Yes, she did. She
So
tried.
the American people decided, no, thank you very much. And part of the reason why Kamala Harris never really connected with voters is because, well, she seemed rather inauthentic, deceitful even, because she never told the truth about what she knew behind closed doors about Joe Biden's health. That's something that she never really fully reconciled. But boy, is the payoff grand for her, because all of those secrets that she kept about what happened with Joe Biden in the White House will now pay off to the tune of $20 million because she is going to get a book deal that will pay her that much in advance for her to tell all of the secrets and so-called skeletons inside the Biden White House. Isn't that nice?
That's nice. That's really nice. Now I'm looking forward to a chapter on her husband and some of the skeletons in his closet. Do you think he's going to open that up?
No, I
She's
don't.
gonna open
No,
it.
I don't.
Will she
I don't,
open that up? No, probably not.
And by the way, I don't think we're going to hear much of the skeletons in this White House either, or what really truthfully happened, because she still wants to be president.
That's right.
But
She
she
doesn't
got
want
her
something
$20
to
million.
indict her.
So we'll see what happens there from our former border czar. Failing upwards is always the situation for Democrats. They're always rewarded like that. By the way, quick opportunity to let everyone know, I have written a book.
Okay.
I have written a book, and no, I know it sounds like I'm joking because I often throw jokes at you, but no, this is true. I've got a book. It's coming out the week of inauguration.
Oh, wonderful.
It's called Shameless Liars, How Trump Defeated the Legacy Media and Made Them Irrelevant. And I want to let everyone know it's my first book. It's coming out in a month, and I am not getting $20 million in advance for it. Just
You're only getting 19. Stop gloating, Larry.
Yeah.
19 million, right?
$19. It's $7.53.